Konverge is a software development company located in the heart of downtown Toronto. Konverge has been in business for 25 years. We established ourselves back in 1994, and originally we started out as a website design company. And throughout the years, we have changed as technology's changed, and we've pivoted as a company as well. Everyone that works here is very client-centric, and all we want is to make sure that our clients have an amazing experience with us. And you know, you have a combination of people who are passionate, who love innovation, who love coming to work every day and creating and building awesome new things. Hello everyone, I think we're live. Yes, I'm pretty sure we are. I'm Sonia, Couto, Managing Director at Konverge, and today we are here with Roxroy Clayton, our Development Manager. I don't see Roxroy. Roxroy, you're here? Oh, he's on his way. While we wait for Roxroy, we are going to be discussing today the importance of building a successful software product and the importance of business analysis, what is business analysis, and how it can really have a positive impact on your project. And the reason we're having this discussion is because obviously at Konverge, we build custom software. And one of the things we always sort of struggle with is explaining to our clients why business analysis is so important, why documentation is so important, and how it's going to lead to the success of a project. I think part of the thought process that our clients have is, you know, they have an idea that they want to build, or they need something quickly for their business, and the first thought is, okay, here's what I want, let's start building. But the thought behind, you know, documentation and how it's going to benefit and make the product even better long term is not really thought about. So we're going to have a discussion with Roxroy, and Roxroy knows requirements very well. And we're just going to try to break down, you know, the importance of what it is and why it should always be done on every single project. And when it's not done, what are going to be, you know, a lot of the risks that you're going to have long term in that project. So, hi, Roxroy. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Hi.
I thought you were lost for a minute there in cyberspace.
It happens sometimes.
So yeah, while I was waiting for you, I kind of did a small little intro, but let's dig right in. Business analysis, not a popular topic to talk about in software. Most people are talking about technology, new trending technologies that are out there, AI, fintech, all of these things. But documentation is not something that's sexy to talk about. But we know the importance of documentation. So why don't you just sort of walk us through, what is business analysis, first of all?
Okay, right. So I think a good way of summarizing business analysis is to think of a solution where we are trying to provide a service to the company to enable change in our organization, right? We want to define what the needs are, defining what requirements are to provide a solution. Because at the end of the day, what we want to do is provide value, deliver value for the stakeholders.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to guide business in terms of improving their processes, improving their products, improving their services, or even improving their current systems so that they can get better value from their clients, from their in the industry, and be more competitive on an overall basis.
So what does a business analyst actually physically do?
Okay, so basically, business analyst is going to be sitting down with the client or the stakeholders. It could be a group of different persons from departments to figure out what is it they want to build. What's the value they're looking for, and how can we guide them in order for them to get to that end point. In many cases, the client may have an idea of, this is where we want to go, but they haven't thought through all the various steps, and they may think there may be just 2 steps in between, when they may be 10 steps, and there are different challenges and different things that needs to be taken into consideration in order for them to get something that is viable, so that actually addresses the solution. So the business analyst basically helps to bridge the gap and create efficiencies in order for us to be able to develop a solution for the client.
So they sit down with the client and they pick their brain and dig deeper into the idea that the client has, and they can also analyze if what is doable, what are some of the challenges that are going to happen, and ways to try and work around them before you even get into any source code development, right?
Oh, correct. Because a lot of times, you have to look at the risk. There are solutions where you may think that something straightforward, and it turn out to be that it's a lot more complex. There's a lot more moving parts, and we want to be able to dig and dive into that aspect of it to be able to identify these challenges and be able to, weigh the risk. If we go route A, what are the costs? What are the risks? We go route B, then what are the challenges as well? And being a business analyst, kind of bridges that gap as well.
So once the business analyst goes through this process, they document all of this. What is that document used for?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, a lot of people, even the agile principle, you don't talk much about documentation, but what we find is that documentation is critical. It serves many different purposes, and you have different persons that it serves. So from the business owners, stakeholders, they have something that they can look at to see, is it something that matches what we want to deliver? So they get documentation themselves. The QA person would also get a set of documentation to be able to tell, does the system meet the specification, as well as developer gets the documentation so they can know what to build. So it actually starts from the start of it, in terms of final requirement, all the way to the end as to what needs to be built. And even afterwards, because after system is built, they may want to do maintenance on it, and we walk into a client and ask them, can you show us, your system can show some documentation, and they have nothing to show us. So it means that one has to spend a lot more time to figure out how things are working and be able to work backwards. Documentation now provides a way of jump-starting that process, so that in the long run, the company actually saves money, because you are now able to assimilate information a lot quicker and be able to provide alternatives at the get-go.
So what are the risks of not doing business analysis?
Well, one is that you may probably get you can get a system that don't really quite meet your demands. It also it provides, when documentation is actually provided, one can look at it to see what are the gaps. You can also assess what the risks are, and in the end game you're able to let's say provide the system, develop a system in a shorter time period, because you'd have looked at the system, you'd have looked at all the obstacles, and you are now able to deal with them before you get a chance to actually start developing it. So it does provide a cost benefit in terms of cost saving, not only today but also for subsequent let's say modification you're doing to the system.
Right. So, I get this a lot where people just think, well, I sort of know what I want in my head, and I just kind of need you guys to build it. And because the cost of documentation, there is a cost to documentation versus starting the development right away. How do you show the value of having the documentation done to a client, and help them understand that yes, they're going to pay a little bit more to have this document, but it's going to benefit them at the very end of the project or throughout the project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it comes to this. I heard this saying. It's going to be a joke, I guess. About a person who's trying to chop a tree down, and one person, spends 4 hours sharpening his blade, and he's not doing any work, right? On the 5th hour, he's like chopping the tree down, while the other person is just chopping his tree and sharpening it as he's going along, and it takes him 8 hours. So the point is that if you do a lot of prep work before, and it may look as if it doesn't have much value, but in the end, what happens is that you actually get the work done a lot faster, because all the problems and issues that may come up would have been dealt with, thought through before it comes up, and therefore you're not actually doing the work twice or reworking stuff. So that's
an analogy.
That's one way of looking at it.
Yeah, I know. I like that actually a lot. But clients or people are always so excited to sort of get building, and it is a very slow process when you first start, correct? When
yes.
you're not developing right away. How do you I know we've encountered this quite a bit, where clients are like, well, like, I want to see something, I haven't seen anything yet.
Yeah.
We're still documenting. What advice would you give to people that are going through that process? And I know patience is one of them, but are there also other ways to sort of speed things up a little bit? What are some of the suggestions that you have?
Yeah, so there are 2 ways to look at this. So one is that while documentation is in process, the client is engaged, so they do have a feel that something is actually happening, especially if you have questions and provide solutions and improvements to their process. They can actually see that in a tangible way. So they can see there's value. But another way to make it a little bit more concrete is to be able to start the documentation earlier, the documentation early, but at the same time start certain level of development. And if you think of a typical system, there are certain things that are that are common among any system. So, for instance, log into the system, the layout, the theme of the system, how the UI works. Those things can actually be done early in the cycle, and therefore development could actually start a lot earlier if you are able to just create that framework, which is standard for any system. So you have to be able to log in. The person would be able to get their password, user interface, and so forth. So that's one way of trying to provide for those clients who want to see some level of visibility, to provide some level of visibility early in the cycle. And it's easier if it's a type of application that is more kind of typical rather than one that is experimental or new. Because if it is a common problem, then we can actually create a framework that would be able to solve that problem even before we have thought through the entire solution, because it's just a common pattern. So that's one way of doing it. So it's kind of agile, a way where you're doing a little documentation, a little development at the same time. But I would add, though, that the critical part of the system in terms of the business rule that is specific to that company would have to be done later on. It can't be done upfront. But, I think you follow what I'm saying in terms of, trying to at least balance it. Yeah.
So, a weird question. Documentation, process. Is this, Converge has been around for 27 years. Is this just a old school mentality? And, younger, newer companies that are out there that are not so document heavy, are they going to run into problems later on? Like, are we just doing this because we've been around for 27 years and we're sort of old school? Or is this something that you think that everyone really, really should be doing? And if they're not, they're going to run into problems?
It's old school, and the reason why is also because we have seen over the past many decades we have been around that this is what works and this is what clients are asking for. They say the more things change, the more it remains the same. But there are certain fundamental things that should always be there, right? And we have seen over the many years that documentation is critical. We have adapted over the time because our level of documentation is not as much as it was, many years ago. We have actually found a way to make it more concise using, new tools and technology and techniques. But it still comes from the fact that having documentation, especially if it's in a central way, provides a way for people to have discussion, for someone to think about things and come with better solution, and also onboarding new persons on the system. So over the many years, we realized that documentation is essential, and we have adapted to it as well, because this is what you really need, in order for you to maintain the system.
So let's say, one of the industries we sort of deal with a lot is the startup world that is low budget. They don't have a lot of budget to build a product. They sort of want to get an MVP to market. They always think that, hey, if I don't spend the money on the whole documentation part and 2-3 months of requirements, I can use that money just to build. What are some of the techniques and things that you can do to still be able to build that without being so document heavy? I mean, is that even possible?
There are certain things that can be done because, as I say, our pictures word 1,000 words. So, we can look at mock-ups, various prototypes, diagrams and pictures, and have a flow there that is more visual, even using audio and video as well, to be able to provide that media to serve the startup, for instance. So they may not want to do a lot of reading, but if you can have it in a different form, then that's a way of complementing. So you still provide some level of documentation. It's not as detailed, but at the same time, it does provide that framework that allows you to have that discussion and to be able to see exactly what problems are being solved, how it's going to be solved, and that's one way of of providing service to those type of clients.
I mean, I know that we've seen over and over and over again in our business, clients coming to us with systems that they had built in other countries, for example, or had built, a couple years ago, and they want to upgrade, and there's no documentation, and it actually ends up costing them a little bit more because we now have to go in and analyze this system, and we have to document what's in it, what's not, what's its capabilities, what it isn't. And I know particularly systems that are built in other countries that don't go through a rigorous development process. Anytime that clients have come to us is because the system is not working or it's not doing what they initially wanted it to do, right? And at the end of the day, one of the things we're always trying to explain to our clients is, the reason why the system is not working the way you expected it to is because the documentation was not done the way it should have been, number one, or it wasn't done at all, and there's no reference that they can go back to look at. They're just sort of doing things off the top of their head.
Right, that's correct.
The best know-how, right? So, some of the risks down the road with not having any documentation is that, even if you get what you want up front, and let's say it's fine, which is great, 5 years down the road, if you decide, hey, you know what, my technology is, my system is working really slow, technology has, evolved a little bit, I think I need to upgrade my system, but I don't want to like rebuild it from scratch. I just need to build, make it faster and update it. Even then, how important is documentation?
Yeah, and that's a very good point too, because when a company starts a system, they're thinking, we just want something out the door very quickly, and they're not thinking that. I guess they do think that it's going to be around for a while, many years, but they're not thinking that they always have to be adding new features and capabilities to it. And what happens at times is that if there's another team looking at it, then they pretty much have to kind of do the documentation that would have been done earlier again, and now it's a lot more complex because now you have to look at the source code to figure out what's happening, as well as speaking to the client. So you actually take up a lot more time in terms of developer time analyzing source code, as well as the stakeholder time in order to talk about requirements, and so it actually costs twice as much. And then at the same time, though, adding new features and capabilities to it, will take a lot more time and effort and investigation. Yeah. So it in long run, it does cost more in that sense.
Yeah. So we've been analyzing the market. We've been looking at the pros and cons of business analysis. Traditionally, for larger corporations who have budget, it's never a problem for us to say, documentation needs to be done. But for smaller organizations and startups, it is an issue. Just budget. So Konverge, we've come up with a program called BAS with like 3 A's in it. And we know what it is, but do you want to talk about on a technical level, and you want to talk about a little bit about what that sort of entails? And I can talk about it a little as well. We're always looking for ways to cater to our clients. We realize that, our clients come in different budget sets, and we want to be able to help everyone achieve their software goals. So we've developed this program to try and help startups build what they need with documentation being done. So do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So we talked about what's the value of documentation, and based on your budget, the size of the company, you may not have the budget in place to pay for documentation. But if you look at it from this point of view, that there's a fixed cost for the project, and there's development time, there is time for QA, there's time for project management and so forth. If you take all those costs together, right, and you were able to put in documentation, you see that it reduces the cost for everything else, QA, management, development time, because there's no back and forth. You pretty much know exactly what's going to be built, how it's going to be built, right? And this can be done in an agile manner as well, right? Therefore, it really doesn't cost you a lot more. It may be a little bit more, but the things that you should think of your software as an investment. So whatever you put in it today, you'll be able to reap the rewards going forward. And because of that, I would encourage any company to always think about that aspect of it, and to leverage BA service. So one of the biggest benefits that I think that the BA service provides is that it helps the client to clearly identify exactly what they need to be built in this iteration, in this version. you would initially have, 20 items that you need to build in your software. And that could be based on your competitors or what the industry is asking for. But you may want to focus on, let's say, the top 20, start at the top 10, the top 5 items. And while we are talking about the system, while we're doing the analysis, we can actually fine tune that process down to something that's manageable, right? I want to give an example of something that I thought about that may probably carry this home. So if a client comes and says, I want to be able to add subscription to my software, that sounds easy. We know what that means. But then the question here is that how do you want a subscription to work, right? Do you want monthly, which is kind of straightforward, just monthly subscription that it renews, recurring, or do you want to be a situation where you have various plans? You have 5 plans or 10 plans, right? So the person can actually create their own plans. So as you add this level of complexity to the system, it actually takes more time, and it actually makes the system more expensive. So the question with the client is, what's the minimum? What do you need a subscription for? I mean, what type of subscription do you need? Do you need 3 different levels of subscription, just one level of subscription? So taking a client, through a situation where they can think about all the various aspects of a feature and what is important and what is not that relevant, we can actually guide the system to be able to work on the features that are important to them and ignore the rest. It could be another release that you may want to add those features, but for today, you may not want to do that. So business analysis will allow you to find out those details and streamline the system as well. And one of the things that we also find is that it also shows ways where the system can be improved and optimized. So the system may have 4 steps, and we can say we can reduce that to a couple steps, right? And still provide the same value. And analysis does provide that insight as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, okay, so I really like the example that you used for subscription, because I mean, we build products and we've had the same issues come up. So, I just want to actually go into it a little deeper. So you're so right. A client wants a subscription model, and let's say it's for SaaS on the cloud, right? And you automatically think, okay, subscription, like what does that mean? Oh yeah, they're going to be able to subscribe and use our software. But then this is when the requirements come in, and you're right. So, are you going to subscribe? Do you want your subscribers to be able to subscribe on a month-to-month basis or on a year-to-year basis? And then if the client all of a sudden goes, oh, you know what? I want both. Okay, great. Now you have to think about, are you going to have different packages or just one package? Okay, they 3 packages. Okay. So now this is when you really start getting into it, where it's like, okay, so what if a client wants to upgrade from month to month to year to year? What if they want to downgrade from year to year to month? What if they want to upgrade to different packages or downgrade to different packages? What bank are you using? Who's going to, how are you going to process the payment? What if somebody wants a refund? How are you going to take care of that? What if they want to stop halfway through? There's so many scenarios. I love how you use the subscription, because that's actually a really good one, because you think it's so simple, like you said, and just subscribe. And we're so used to going online and subscribing for things and not really understanding what's happening in the background, and how different scenarios can affect different parts of the system. And you have to think about all of those different scenarios and make sure that you built it with those capabilities in. So for example, if someone wants to be able to upgrade from on a month-to-month basis from one package to another, you actually have to build those capabilities in the system to allow the users to do that. If you don't think about that ahead of time, halfway through deploying your system, you're going to have all kinds of support issues, right? Where people are going to be signing up for your software, and you're going to be getting phone calls like crazy for people saying, I want to be able to do this. How can I do this in your system? And if you don't have those capabilities, that's going to create a huge issue, right? And I mean, we're speaking out of experience because we've been through this, right?
Yeah.
So the Konverge BaaS program that we put together is focused on, catering to startups and smaller sized businesses who don't have a huge budget but want to build an MVP, a minimal viable product, or have an idea and they want to build an app and get it up and running. So what we're doing is we're trying to compress the business analysis time and document process into a shorter version. So we're saying, let's spend 5 days, 10 days, and we're going to maximize that time as much as we can and document as much as we can and create some wireframes and use cases. But we're not going to do it so in depth where it's going to take up a lot of time. Now, that really can't be done with large software systems, but with startups that are sort of, building a minimal viable product and are just kind of want to get it to market to test it out, or they're just doing a beta, we can reduce the amount of documentation that is being done, right?
Correct.
And even when clients come to us to just even ask for an estimate, we actually sometimes people call us, they're like, yeah, I want to build this app that does this and that. What's the cost? And we always say, we can't give you a cost just based on that. We always have to create what we call a business requirement outline document. And that's based on us having a 30-minute conversation with the client, really trying to understand what it is that they're trying to build. And then we will put together a document, which is a very, minimal requirement document in order to even put together an estimate. So even at the estimate level, we already start doing requirements. But this FAST program is really going to help startups that want to, first of all, start building quickly, don't want to spend a lot of time in documentation, but it'll at least allow us, the software builders, to document enough information that will make the project be successful, where every process that's going to be involved, like development, QA, architecture, everyone who's going to be involved will have some sort of documentation that will be able to help them, guide them through building the product and making it successful. So I encourage people to check out our website, look at the program, contact us if you want a little bit more information. I mean, as we continue to offer this program, we will continue learning and obviously continue improving it and making it as easy and streamlined as we can. And that's, our 30 minutes talking about business requirements and business analysis. If anyone has any questions, you can contact us on our website. You can contact us on our social media, myself, Roxroy, and we are happy to answer any questions. Thank you for coming on, Roxroy, and walking us through the wonderful world of business analysis, which I know is not a popular topic, but we as software developers see the importance of having this in place, and I know we want to talk about it a little bit more in more lives, and just to showcase the importance of it and how it can really help make your project successful and not a complete failure by the end of it, and also making sure that you're getting exactly what you wanted and expected at the end of it all.
Okay, sure.
Thank you, and we will see you all next time.